So it's streaming, and then we can.
And actually, I'll hand this around just to choose
the extra front and back and with the video off, so that it's just to the talk, but it's recording it now. So basically, anything Brad says now is recorded forever now.
Okay, Brad.
What you're saying.
Good to meet you.
Well, it's the microphone is picking up some of it. Oh, so I'll just turn this one off. So.
Do you want me to turn this one off?
Yeah, maybe, and then we'll only have my mic on when I do my intro, and then you can turn yours on when you come up. Troy, did you need to do a safety moment or anything?
No.
Or a 3D7 moment, or
because
no, that's
you haven't memorized the 3D7 speech that more than
no, that's
without bashing any other companies. It was a full like 10 minutes before the preamble was done before we could start.
And this was at where?
At another EP.
Actually, no, he's Bad Fuzz Mount Road. I've done a few things like the oil. Oh my goodness.
Safety moment, which is done comprehensively, and then there's a 3D7 moment, which is done comprehensively. It's literally 10 minutes of your hour.
Well, we don't have any such requirements. Some people do, but I think we're more time sensitive.
But we can leave one of the ones at the back too. That way it's convenient if folks miss the front one. But thanks. How's the pizza?
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Excellent.
Yeah, the Cocoa Brooks pizza has always been really good. Challenge is always navigating the delivery down through the door. But once you've got that part.
I used to run an engineering firm way down the southeast, so we'd drive over and pick it up.
Oh, yeah. And Troy, like, do we want to start at like 5 after?
Yeah, we can.
Give folks time to
There's quite a few more people who accepted, so if you have the time.
Yeah, we'll start at 5 after.
Hello. Hi, as long as they realize we'll finish at 5 after that.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Brad.
Hi, Brad.
Good to meet you. Need to sign, so you can sign in and grab a pizza at the back. And
So, do you guys all work together? Do you know each other, or Troy pull from diverse teams of folks who've never met each other?
come on in.
We now know who Troy's friends are because
Sign in. Pizza's at the back.
They're the only ones who got invites.
Started in about 2 minutes.
So you know who's on the outside. So when we are, and I think Troy mentioned this in the invite, we are recording this, but the camera is pointing at the front, so you guys don't have to worry about busting your witness protection program or anything
well, you
like
didn't tell
that.
me about that part. So.
And as well, we do have, so we've got a couple microphones, and that isn't to try to amplify it, because we don't have a speaker set up, it's to help the recording pick it up. So what we do is we actually, all of these lunch and learns, whether they be here or at Suncor or at Stantec or wherever, get recorded and posted to the website so that you can access that even if you don't happen to work at those other places and weren't present at the other lunch and learn, you can still have access to.
Okay, so we can share this with the rest of the group also. Then.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This has just one piece. Well, there's the under 30 and over 30. Phraseology. We have different nomenclature. For us older guys, that's a whole pizza. For young people, that's a slice.
Should we
What do you figure? Should we jump into it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I appreciate everyone coming today. This is Mike DeBoer. I met Mike in my first year of university a long time ago. I won't say how long anymore. Mike is the president and CEO of Leveling Up Leadership Training, and I'll let you introduce your team.
Sure. Good. Sure. As Troy said, I'm Mike DeBoer, and yeah, Leveling Up is a little organization I started recently. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. But today I've got Brad Gollin here. Brad is a professional coach and mentor and has a distinguished career in the oil and gas industry, and now seeks to help organizations in getting unstuck through his organization called CEVO, right?
Chief Evolution Officer.
And I've also brought along Claus DeBoer, who is learning how to help set up all of this equipment, and he's a support from my Leveling Up organization. So what is Leveling Up? I'll do it real quick, and then really I'm not the show here today. Brad is really who you came to see. Troy, if we can just go to the next slide a sec. So Leveling Up is all about helping people become exceptional leaders, and as we've been told throughout our careers, we all need a mentor. You need to find somebody to help you out. But I know from personal experience that that's an incredibly frustrating journey. Actually, I'll talk quickly about a different journey I went on, although the story will make sense in a minute. Troy, if you can advance the next slide. In my grade 12 year of high school, our school had a gym, and I started working out and proceeded to spend the next 20 years working out in various gyms. I actually built a bit of a home gym in my basement, went to the gym down the street, had gym membership, all that kind of great stuff. For 20 years, consistently worked out, and honestly never won any awards. Nobody ever took any special, photos of me to put me in magazines or anything like that. It never amounted to anything in my 20 years of hacking it all by myself, although I did some very interesting routines off the internet. If you've ever heard of 20 rep squats, lots of craziness over 20 years. Around my 37th birthday, random idea, and I have no idea where this came from, maybe I watched the wrong commercial, decided I was going to get into the sport of strongman. The thing where you pull fire trucks and lift logs and stuff like that. So decided to get into strongman, joined a local group. This group met weekly. There's about 5-6 of us. We would meet once a week for a couple hours, and there was always somebody in that group that knew more, so we'd hold each other accountable. There'd be lots of ego, of course. You're lifting heavy things, and there's somebody there to coach you. 2.5 years after joining Strongman, I was on the podium as Alberta's Strongest Man. 20 years, doing it all alone, didn't get anywhere. 2.5 years, nothing changed. I was still the same person, same genetics, but all it took was training in the right environment, and I was able to achieve my goals I couldn't have achieved in 20 years. That's where Leveling Up comes in. I want you as leaders to achieve your goals. I want you to grow in your skills, and I want you to have access to the resources that will help you get there. Brad is one of those resources. We have a community of what we call sages. Is everybody familiar with the word sage? So, sage is a learned person. Brad is our learned person. And so I'm happy to bring him here today and have Brad talk about how to make yourself promotable. I'll talk a little bit more at the end about the other opportunities within Leveling Up, but maybe we'll turn it over to Brad. Did I have one more slide there, Trey? And I always forget this, which is why I put this. I've given each one of you a postcard that looks exactly like that, because I took a picture of it last night. That is for your use. You can take that back to your desk afterwards. The points on there are the key points from today's talk that Brad wants you to remember. Trying to elevate this from the TED Talk. TED Talk, 18 minutes of professional video. You listen to it, 30 seconds later you've forgotten. Today you have the opportunity to take that card back to your desk, hang it on your wall, and remember what you've learned here today for a little bit more than 30 seconds. So that's my one of my gifts to you. We'll talk more about what's in that pack later. But feel free to write notes on that or in your book. You've all got a pen. I think, Brad, you said there was homework today?
There's a test on Friday. Yeah,
test on Friday. Okay, good. So without further ado, Brad Gollin. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. So let me first give you just a real quick background of myself. So I'm an engineer, like a lot of you. I've not let that hold me back, though. I was going to show the Dilbert video of when his mother finds out that he's going to become an engineer and breaks down in tears. I think we've all seen that one. And Einstein said, actually, ironically, from a theoretical physicist, Einstein said the only true knowledge comes from experience. So unfortunately, I'm blessed with a lot of that. I've learned from my mistakes. That's been my biggest lessons. And the presentation I'm doing today kind of builds on that, because when we are talking about coming in and helping organizations build soft skills, build leadership, help build capacity in their organizations, I kind of thought back to when I was an engineer early on at Petrochem. I did midstream pipeline engineering, reservoir engineering, production engineering, projects and facilities engineering, drilling engineering, and worked on the rigs as a roughneck during summers and did all that good stuff that Albertans are supposed to do as part of our heritage. But when I thought back, it really kind of, I thought, what would really help me is if somebody would have kind of told me how things work. Because when we think about it, business is a team sport. And I really didn't have an appreciation for what I really needed to do to make myself successful. So that's why we put together this presentation and framework, because in some respects it's targeted at the younger professionals within your groups. I see a lot of experience here. But regardless, part of the approach of this is our philosophy is really peer mentoring. There's so much knowledge, there's so much capability and capacity and intelligence around the table. It's not like I'm some great font of wisdom. What I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you some frameworks. We're going to go through that for about 20 minutes. And if you got pens, I invite you to take down, if some of these frameworks trigger ideas for you, I want you to capture those. Because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to break you into groups of 4, and you guys are going to share your knowledge, and you're going to talk about, what do I do with this shit? What matter does this make for me? And how can I incorporate this into my career? Because on this, in terms of this making yourself promotable, 2 things that I want to start in terms of a paradigm. First paradigm is, this is your career, you own it. So if you're waiting for somebody else to help guide your career, stop waiting. It's your career. So take ownership of it. And the second thing I want to put forward to you is, again, a paradigm shift. The paradigm I want you to have is I want you to think of yourself as an entrepreneur. Sure, your paycheck comes from Encana, but at the end of the day, you have a product to sell, and the product is you. How are you selling your product? How are you representing yourself? How are you making that product brand, image, demand, etc.? So having that paradigm that really, you've got your own business here, and your own business here is this. How do I sell it? How do I promote it? How do I make it successful, etc.? So that's what we're talking about. And really what I've done is I've kind of distilled experience and a lot of the common methodologies, because there's lots of research. You can go to YouTube, Google this, and you'll find lots of stuff. So 5 key points. Understand what your boss is looking for. That's your customer. So you better understand your customer. Okay? Build your network and be a team player. It is a team sport. And I'll get into that. Perform and show your leadership potential. So you got to do your job. You got to do your job well. This, big companies have this bad rep that you got to be a brown noser and all this other kind of stuff. Not really. It's a little more. It's a little more 3-dimensional than that. So communicate your brand and goals. Because again, if you do have ambitions within the organization or for yourself personally, if you don't communicate those, how's anyone going to help you achieve that? And then lastly, own your attitude. Your attitude in business and how when I've run companies, how I choose who I want to kind of lead and set the example is hugely dependent on people's attitudes above most other factors. Okay, let's jump in. Good to great. How many people read this? Okay, just so you know, what I want you to understand is for a lot of you, if your boss has only one book on his bookshelf, there's a good chance it might be this one. This is probably the most common business advice book that you will see in most people's shows. And they've come out with a number of books since. Collins has written Staying Great, and a number of other books. But the basic concepts in this are key. So one of the things that your boss got out of this, if you want to understand what they're thinking, what she's thinking, it's all about the people. So I got to get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. So that's the framework. So the key is you got to make sure you're seen as a right person. Okay. Has anybody ever seen this? This is actually a GE framework. It's a century old. Have any of you seen this? This is from a book called Top Grade. So the reason I'm throwing this out, and you guys can download this, is if you want to know what your boss is thinking, you can actually go grab the same books that they've probably looked at. Most HR methodologies build around this best practice methodology from Top Grading. So effectively, what it means is when your boss is looking at you, they're looking at you in a simple matrix. We engineers love matrix, right? Those are simple to understand. And true criteria. Are you performing? Are you performing consistently? And are you living the core values? So those are the criteria. So if I'm performing consistently, delivering on my KPIs, my targets, and I live the core values, I'm a great guy to work with. I can get along with the team. Then I'm an A player. An A player basically boils down into there's different types of A. So the idea of an A1 is I've got somebody who's got the skills and the capability and demonstrates that they're ready for promotion. So A players are what I want. When I'm thinking as a senior leader, I want my entire team to be A players. An A2 is somebody who needs some skill development. They still need some polishing and they still need some work. So 12 to 24 months, possible. A3 is somebody that within the foreseeable window of their future, they're an A player. They perform consistently, they live the values, but you know, why would I take my best sales guy and make him into my worst sales manager? Why would I take my best design engineer and make him into my worst project manager? So there's people who are just really good at what they're at, and if that's where they're happy, then recognize them and appreciate them. Okay, B player. Somebody who does not deliver consistently, but does live the values. So those are people I can train up. Those are people who basically fit my organization, but maybe they're just in the wrong seat. They've got A potential. C player. Well, C player is the person who does not perform consistently and does not live the core values. So that is that jerky person in the office down the hall who is always sees the problems and everything and tells you what's going to screw up in your project, and just those people are no fun to work with. And they don't even do their own jobs well, let alone give me advice on how badly I'm doing. And then the most dangerous one is this one called CK, or culture killer. So those people are top performers, but they don't live the values. They are no fun to work with. Those people are the ones that are most dangerous because those are the people that companies quite often tolerate. That's that person who just puts out and delivers. Well, they're great, but they tear my team apart. Nobody wants to work with them. They're a nightmare. And those ones are insidious, but anybody down here needs to be managed out. Anybody up here, I need to nurture. So when you're thinking about how do I fit and service my boss, this is how your boss is looking at the world. So you need to position yourself. Let's flip this. Are you an A player? So I got a checklist. Tick. Do you have a clearly defined role? How many of you have a job description that is comprehensive and you think really reflects what you really do? Ouch. Okay. Are there KPIs in your role? A really good job description should have hard measurables. Your performance should be data-driven. Are you on time, on budget, and on spec for your projects? How do we measure that? And that should be in your job description. Okay? Are you tracking your performance and success? Because your boss is not. If you want to get recognized and you want to be appreciated and you go in for your performance review, you need to have your own evidence that here's what I performed, here's what I've accomplished, here's how well I've done, here's feedback. You need to collect that, not your boss. Okay? Are you meeting with your boss weekly? Sometimes we get so oriented in our tasks that we forget about the relationship. And this doesn't mean am I taking them for lunch every week. This means, do I have a regularly scheduled 5 minutes just to give a quick update? Here's what's going good. Here's where I'm challenged. Here's where I might need some help. No surprises. I want to make sure that they're proactively involved with this. And the face-to-face is really critical because one of the courses I teach in the skill set is communications. So I'm not sure you guys are aware, communications, 7% of communications is words. Emails are 7% of communications. So emails and texts and messaging is the worst form of communication. I found that I actually write email policies that say don't send emails because I've had entire teams get sideswiped for days because one person sends a stupid email that's controversial and the whole department goes into this self-absorbed confab back and forth, which we could resolve in a 10-minute discussion. 38% of communications is tone and inflection. Make a phone call. It's 7 times more effective than writing a message. 55% of communications is body language. So if you have a face-to-face, that's when you can look at the person, you can see how they're interacting. That's the best way to go. So a 5-minute face-to-face with your boss is worth 500 emails. Okay? If the company hasn't set you up for success, you need to take ownership. And you need to set yourself up for success. So if they're not doing this for you, you need to be proactive and do this for yourself. Okay. Number 2 on the checklist, build relationships. So in a sense, relationships are 360. And this is not building relationships as in brown nosing. This is just getting to know people as people. So it's good to know that your boss, a lot of times, how many of you here are managers or have been managers? Does it feel lonely sometimes?
Not really.
Your guys, do you get to know your guys and you guys kind of socialize and do stuff like that? Excellent. I find kind of at a working level, it tends to be more camaraderie. I find quite often the higher you will go up the food chain, the more lonely it gets. Okay, relationships with management, relationships with clients, relationship with your team, relationship with peers across the organization, across the industry. So just build that network, and it's going out and just meeting people. It's not a big effort, but it's worth the effort. Don't get stuck in your office. Don't isolate yourself. Because there's a lot of people out there, sometimes you get stuck in a problem, being able to reach out to your network, and that's when it's sometimes handy to send that text message or that post on Facebook or post on the intranet. How do I do this? If you've got a network, you can be amazed at what kind of help it can give you. Okay, keep going. So again, checklist. Just socialize. Build a network 360 degrees. So one of the things that is part of what we do, so I'm a part-time consultant, part-time entrepreneur. So one of my startups is an app that we're moving into the States right now called GoMentor. And the whole idea is the most effective type of approach now to mentoring is peer networks. So you know what? It's not the old model of somebody with all this wisdom. It's really we as a group can really help each other and learn from each other. So take that approach. The other thing too is most effective way to build a network is to just help other people. It's not that I'm trying to get stuff from other people, but if I can be of service to other people. You know, Carnegie, that was one of his fundamental philosophies to success is, what is your level of service? Be of service. Okay? Share your ideas and experiences, information. As engineers, one of the biggest challenges we have is we all want to be right. And, you know, that's noble, that's all good, but if we really want to be effective at building relationships, it's better to focus on the relationship than on being right. So the easiest way to do that is if you share your perspective, but share it as for information purposes. I don't have an axe to grind. I don't have something to prove. Here's just how I see it and how I think of it, and offer it as information. We can start to break down. It makes relationships move much easier as opposed to when we get into this who's right and who's wrong thing. So just an approach. Okay.